Hey everybody. In this video, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Absolver after spending about 5 hours with the game. The tricky thing about covering this game in its current state about a week after release is that while it has many great and wonderful things going for it, and things that I think will ultimately prove very impactful and important in a historical context with regard to the evolution of gaming, there are certainly a number of noteworthy issues with the game that can't be ignored, even in light of all the things that it does right and well. In most cases, when I come across a game like this, where I can see all the potential in the game, I'm having a lot of fun with it, but I also see the warts and the blemishes, and am hopeful that those will be addressed, I oftentimes will wait until the game is patched a few times, or the majority of the issues that I've spotted in it are handled before covering it, just to make sure that I give the game a fair chance and give the developers ample opportunity to correct any issues that I find. However, in the case of Absolver, I've decided to make an exception, and the main reason for that is because I do believe this game is very important in terms of what it represents in the evolution of fighting games and the sort of mixture or cross-pollination of technical fighting game mechanics with other genres of gaming. A few years ago, we had the release of several games that focused primarily on melee combat, most notably Chivalry and War of the Roses and War of the Vikings. And while I really enjoyed those games for the most part, despite their own set of issues, one thing that almost immediately occurred to me while playing them was how much more interesting their complex fighting mechanics would be in the context of a broader, grander, more fully realized gameplay experience. For me, in a lot of ways, Absolver really represents the first game to take a set of intricate, complex melee combat mechanics and build an adventure, RPG, multiplayer experience around them. To be sure, there have been other games, most notably the Dark Souls series, that have kind of tread this ground, but one of my big complaints about Dark Souls has always been the difficulty and the disjointed manner in which the game has to be played if you're attempting to play it cooperatively. The literally archaic and unnecessarily convoluted manner in which even the most recent Dark Souls games implement the concept of cooperative play with friends is one of my biggest points of frustration with them, and one of the main things that keeps me from playing, covering, and otherwise enjoying them. What Absolver does to a certain extent is to streamline and at least somewhat improve the mechanisms by which cooperative play with friends can be accomplished. Now, that's not to say that the implementation in Absolver is perfect, it is most definitely not, but it's at least a step in the right direction and allows groups of friends to cooperatively experience the vast majority of the content in the game, assuming that no technical issues mar that experience. And here, unfortunately, is where Absolver gets a few dings from me. Not just in terms of the widely publicized, finicky server behaviors that have marred the launch of the game, but in terms of just how difficult it is to group with friends, travel throughout the game's spacious environments, and maintain a cooperative experience. To be sure, there are times when everything in Absolver just works, and when that happens, this game is absolutely sublime. The combat system is nothing short of art to behold, and despite suffering from some occasional jank and animation and camera weirdness, the overall experience is quite challenging, satisfying, and exhilarating. There's something about the feeling when you block, dodge, or parry an enemy's attack and turn the tables on them, or successfully fight off your first group of enemies when outnumbered, that very few games I've played could match in terms of raw satisfaction. But again, even the core fundamental aspects of the game have their share of warts and wrinkles. Animation priority can sometimes be an issue in the combat, which can lead to unfortunate instances of stepping off of ledges or falling into water if a combo isn't cut short in time. There are some very artistic but sometimes awkward camera angles used in various locations and during various situations in the game that I think will be a matter of personal taste as to whether or not they're considered a benefit or a detriment to the game. And on the whole, for as much as I appreciate the vast, varied, detailed, and exquisitely rendered environments of the game, they do feel a bit empty at times and a bit lacking in terms of gameplay variety. For the most part, the experience of playing Absolver is about traversing its vast landscape, fighting NPC or player-controlled enemies, searching for loot items, and acquiring new martial arts skills to add to your character's repertoire. If all those things sound appealing to you, then you'll probably enjoy this game quite a bit, as you'll be doing quite a lot of those things and not much else. That's not necessarily a knock on the game, as having a clear and focused vision for its gameplay is one of its charms. But in a lot of ways, I do see Absolver as more of a basis for a platform that could be expanded as opposed to a fully realized gameplay concept. It's also worth noting that I've experienced some odd behaviors that could be construed as technical issues with loot replication, user interface elements not rendering, and a variety of odd camera glitches under certain circumstances. In a lot of ways, this is a game that stands mostly on its innovation and the fact that there's really nothing else out there quite like it, which is why I'm pretty confident that Absolver will end up being viewed historically as a very important game, regardless of whether or not it lives up to its full potential in the here and now. If pressed to make a definitive judgment about the game, I would have to say that I do enjoy it and generally have a very good time when I'm playing it. However, it's very clear to me that there's quite a bit of room for technical improvement in various aspects of it. At the end of the day, I would recommend Absolver to anyone who's a fan of technical fighting games, games with light RPG elements, and world explorations, as I believe those are the three areas where the game really shines in its current form. Also, if you're willing to put up with some technical issues and some frankly clunky and inconsistent cooperative matchmaking and party mechanics, there is some fun to be had with this game in the context of a small group of friends. Although I will say that I think a group of 4 or more might find it difficult for everybody in the group to have something interesting to do in all but the most hectic combat situations, as there are very rarely more than 2 or 3 enemies in a group's immediate area at any given time, which could lead to members of the party either feeling left out or situations where the AI enemies don't present the challenge that they normally would because they're being ganged up on by multiple players. In my opinion, where Absolver really shines as a game is in 1v1 or 2v2 or 2v1 small-scale combat scenarios. The mechanics work very well in that context, but they have a tendency to fall apart a little bit, lose a bit of their elegance, and become a bit too chaotic whenever there are more than, say, 4 or 5 entities engaged in combat in any given area. Having said all that, I definitely will be playing more of Absolver and looking forward to seeing the game grow, mature, and refine as time passes. I definitely appreciate it for what it currently is, and don't really have any regrets about picking it up despite the various technical issues that I've mentioned. As always, if you have enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button. If you'd like to see more videos from me in the future, be sure to hit subscribe, and I will see you next time.